Hi everyone, welcome to the February 2016 Coach Corner by Hubbub. I'm Danielle Shaitan. I'm a wellness consultant and health coach for Hubbub, and I'm going to lead you through today's topic of discussion. So today we are talking about increasing our energy, and to engage in this discussion we're going to focus on our energy factories. They're called mitochondria. We'll also talk about mitochondrial rust, some nutrients that are used to boost the efficiency of your mitochondria, and how you can begin to take action in increasing your energy and helping your mitochondria perform its duties today. Okay, so let me start by asking, have you ever been able to drive your car without any gas? Or turn on an unplugged TV? What about grow plants without light? In each case, the lack of energy source makes it virtually impossible for these devices or life forms to function. Now the same applies to our bodies. Do you know the name of the fuel source humans run on? I'll give you a hint. It's something called ATP. But the full name is adenosine triphosphate, and it's produced by structures in our cells called mitochondria. And this picture that you see here is our Hubbub version of mitochondria. So all of our organs, bones, tissues, and muscles are made up of trillions of cells. And each cell has many mitochondria working constantly to produce the fuel that those cells need to function, or also known as ATP. In fact, brain, heart, and muscles and other organs, they actually do a lot more extensive work for the body, and therefore they have higher concentrations of our mighty mitochondria. Okay, so mitochondrial dysfunction is actually implicated in a host of diseases and conditions. Diseases like cancer and diabetes, and conditions like fibromyalgia or mental disorders. But even if you don't have any of these diseases or conditions yet, and hopefully not ever, you may be all too familiar with the most common symptom of mitochondrial dysfunction. Do any of these pictures look like you? It's called fatigue. Thankfully, though, you don't have to live with fatigue from mitochondrial dysfunction forever. I promise. It is possible to improve mitochondrial dysfunction with specific nutrition and lifestyle choices. So let's learn more. Well, though making energy for our cells to function is a huge job, the mitochondria, they also have other critical jobs too. So for example, they make neurotransmitters or brain chemicals that carry messages to different cells throughout your body. They're also involved in something called lipid synthesis, and lipid is another name for fat. But the membrane of all of the cells in our body is made up of something called phospholipids. It's a type of fat that our bodies produce. Without a structurally sound cell membrane, our cells can't function, and therefore our bodies won't be able to function. You can think of it like if you had weak walls on the outside of a house, the house would just eventually collapse, right? So the big message here is that mitochondria are very important to optimal health. You can imagine if they aren't functioning effectively, how quickly health and happiness would deteriorate. So imagine if you left the hood up of your car, or if you didn't take it in for an oil change regularly, or maybe you gave it junky, cheap gas all the time. What do you think might happen to your engine? Over time, your car engine would get rusty and it wouldn't work very well. And the same goes for our mitochondria. They are the human engine, essentially. So if we don't care for our mitochondria properly, they too will develop something that's quote unquote, called rust. So some of the key causes of mitochondrial rust or dysfunction that I'd like to talk to you about today are toxins, fructose, and chronic stress. So let's start with fructose. Fructose occurs naturally in fruit, and our bodies have been processing it virtually forever. And our liver breaks it down really with no problem. But the process that the liver goes through to break down fructose versus glucose, which is the preferred fuel, it actually produces a higher level of damaging byproducts. It's just a natural part of the process that the body goes through to break down fructose. And the damaging byproducts, they're called free radicals, or reactive oxygen species, to be more specific. And I'm sure you've all heard of free radicals, and we'll dig into those in a little bit. But for now, let's just remember, free radicals are not good for the body, and fructose breakdown creates more of them. And of course, there's the evil man-made cousin of fructose. It's called high fructose corn syrup. This stuff is ubiquitous in packaged foods, from ketchup to baked goods to soda. So let me just clarify here. Unless you're eating loads of fruit daily, and every person's limit is different, then fruit is not your enemy. Not your enemy. But high fructose corn syrup is. So my suggestion is to be searching for which foods in your pantry have this high fructose corn syrup. The next cause of mitochondrial rust is our toxins. And we're exposed every day to toxins, right? We breathe them in, they get on our skin, and the body is a supercomputer. It actually can do a reasonably good job of removing these toxins quickly via the liver. But some toxins appear to do more damage than others. And I'll give you an example of that. Animal studies have shown, for example, that substances in common pesticides like Roundup, they actually disrupt the membrane of a cell. And as a result, they interrupt mitochondrial function. And this happens even in concentrations 450 times more diluted than the amount sprayed on your average agricultural crop. So that's definitely something to think about when considering if you'd like to purchase organic or conventional produce. So finally, chronic stress. This woman in the picture is a clear example. Many of us, I think, can relate to at least having this experience a few times a year or more. But chronic stress can lead to mitochondrial rust. So let's learn a bit more about how and why. This picture always makes me laugh, but it shouldn't, because it's definitely depicting what happens in the body with chronic stress. So when you're experiencing chronic stress, your mitochondria, they have to increase energy production to keep your organs and your physiological processes working overtime. So imagine this, you have a job or a new job, and this job requires you to drive a lot locally. So you'll be in your car a lot more, and you'll likely need more gas to keep it going, right? But you'd also be putting many more miles and wear and tear on your car. So you'll likely need more tune-ups and more oil changes to keep your engine running smoothly. In humans, a normal byproduct of energy, or ATP production, that the mitochondria produce, is something called reactive oxygen species, or ROS. It's a type of free radical. So mitochondria working overtime when you're stressed is just constantly producing more energy and therefore producing many more reactive oxygen species, or free radicals. So if you've heard of the term free radical, you probably know they're like human kryptonite. And I actually think this image on this screen, while it makes me giggle, it is a great depiction of how a free radical works to cause damage. Free radicals cause damage to our cells because they're missing electrons, like the little gray evil-looking guy in the picture on the left, he desperately wants to steal electrons from any substances that are nearby him. But more likely than other substances, lipids are one of the targets of these free radicals. And as I mentioned before, lipids are a substance that makes up the outside of our cells. And without a sturdy outside, remember, our house can collapse. So free radicals, they also steal electrons from nucleic acids. That is another name for your DNA, your genetic material. These substances are stealing from them. So the good news is once these free radicals steal electrons from another substance, they become neutralized. And that's good because they can't damage anything else. But the problem is they leave those substances that they stole from useless to the body. And this effect, the damage that's left behind from this little gray free radical, it's called oxidative stress. So the summary message here is this: chronic stress requires more energy. The body produces more energy, but in doing so produces more free radicals. And free radicals cause damage to the body. Okay, let's talk about something more positive. So in addition to combating stress, avoiding high fructose corn syrup, and keeping toxins at bay, you can also take some positive action to boost your mitochondrial function with nutrition. So to produce energy effectively, the mitochondria need a few key inputs. They need enough macronutrients. Macronutrients is fats, carbs, and protein, but they specifically need enough healthy fats. They need B vitamins, an antioxidant called CoQ10, other antioxidants, to get rid of those free radicals that we talked about, and magnesium. So let's start with healthy fats. Many people are very fearful of fat, but I want to remind you, eating fat does not make you fat. But choosing high quality, healthy fats will actually support mitochondrial function. And I'll tell you more about this in the upcoming slide. Mitochondria, they also need B vitamins to produce ATP. And actually, many middle-aged women are low in B vitamins. This is likely because their mitochondria are demanding more and more B vitamins to produce the energy they need to keep up with the demands of life and home and work. So some B vitamin-rich foods are meats, but also legumes and whole grains. People tend to leave those two food groups out when they think of B vitamins, but it's really important to remember you don't have to just eat meat to get B vitamin-rich foods. Next, mitochondria need an antioxidant called CoQ10. So CoQ10, it functions by actually accepting and donating electrons. So remember our little gray free radical from the previous slide. He wants electrons. And so CoQ10 will neutralize him by donating electrons to him. So one thing to keep in mind, if you're taking a statin, you should be taking CoQ10 as a supplement because most statins will stop the body from making its own CoQ10. And that's something that I wanted to specify here as well. While you can get CoQ10 in some foods, and I'll mention a few to you, the body does make its own CoQ10 as well. But supplementing with food is always a positive for the body, and some examples are rainbow trout or herring, two types of fish, sesame seeds, pistachio nuts, broccoli, cauliflower, eggs, oranges, and strawberries. So many of the foods that you see in this picture. Magnesium is another input that your mitochondria need to actually produce ATP. Magnesium is needed by many different biological processes that lead to the production of energy. So where can you get magnesium? Nuts and seeds, particularly pumpkin seeds are my favorite source, leafy greens, and beans. So lastly, let's just mention that to support mitochondrial function and reduce the oxidative stress that naturally happens when your body produces ATP is antioxidants, and lots of them. So foods high in antioxidants are your fruits and vegetables. But unfortunately, most of us don't get enough of these daily. I myself even have to count how much fruits and vegetables I'm getting in daily to be sure I'm giving my body what it needs. Okay, so let's talk a little bit briefly about some nutrients that can even protect your mitochondria. So scientific research has found that some nutrients are supportive and protective of mitochondria. 3 particular nutrients that have been studied are omega-3 fats, alpha-lipoic acid, and resveratrol. So omega-3 fats are important for a variety of reasons. The inner membrane of your mitochondria is made up of lipids. We talked about the cell being made up of lipids, but the mitochondria membrane is also made up of lipids. And to protect the mitochondria membranes from damage, we need to eat more high-quality fats. And omega-3 fats are actually the best because they're the most anti-inflammatory fat that humans can eat. What else is great about omega-3 fats is they help the body in burning fat to produce cellular energy. So I mentioned mitochondria, they need healthy fats to produce energy from this particular food source. Next, alpha-lipoic acid. Well, a scientist named Bruce Ames found that alpha-lipoic acid actually protects mitochondria and improves function. And how it does that is it directly neutralizes the reactive oxygen species. So it acts similar in general to how CoQ10 reacts in the body. Now, unfortunately, increasing alpha-lipoic acid from food intake hasn't been shown yet to increase your blood levels of it. But if you think you might have mitochondrial dysfunction, you'll want to talk to your integrative health provider to start supplementing with ALA. Next, this is a phytonutrient, resveratrol, that you might have heard of. It's found in the skin of grapes, and thus it's also in red wine. Yum! Well, this powerful antioxidant has been found to improve resistance from oxidative damage. Unfortunately, we don't know the exact mechanism. It's still being studied, but sometimes that's enough for us to hear that it has been shown over and over again to improve resistance from oxidative stress. So if you think I'm going to recommend you drink wine, no siree, because it would take you up to 80 bottles daily to get the benefits you need from resveratrol in red wine. So instead, I encourage you to think about taking this phytonutrient in capsule form if needed. All right, let's start talking about how you can take action. There's so many options for you to begin increasing your energy. Some of them I've listed here, like, for example, could you make tackling stress your 2016 big game? You could also start to look at the foods that we talked about and eat more nutrients that support your mitochondria. Starting with fruits and vegetables, I think, is probably the easiest way to begin. You could take a stand, I hope, with me against high fructose corn syrup and find some new alternatives that really nurture your body. And you can begin to think about toxin exposure and consider buying organic for at least the daily dozen. And the daily dozen is a set of produce that has the lowest pesticide residue on it. So I want to thank you all for participating, and I look forward to seeing you on future Coach Corner sessions. And also I wanted to mention in the last 30 seconds here that HubHub offers one-on-one coaching to employers to help make players like you create healthy habits. So if you feel you're ready to be coached and you're ready to meet and exceed your health goals this year, then please talk to your employer about purchasing health coaching for you. Thank you.